We've had two apologies that have come in prior to today, and then Vince has an apology. He rang me last night, so I just need to start the meeting if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll have a bit of a chat, and then we'll break for morning tea, Stuart, and you're more than welcome to join us over a cup of tea as well.
That'd be great.
How are we doing with the technology grant? I'm not sure that, I think I said her polling station was unwell and was going home, is that what?
Yeah,
that's
what she said.
Yeah, so she might come in online instead of, because she was going to go to a DLC.
Yeah, she's dropped off now, so she's not here.
So we'll just, yeah.
Okay.
It is a 10 o'clock start, so if I can just go through the normal procedures and then welcome Stuart to our meeting. So our normal health and safety matters, councillors, we're all very aware, should we need to exit the building, out the door that you entered or the door to my left, and our assembly point is over by the St John's. Just due consideration, we do have 3 apologies that we need to receive today from Councillor Dave Hislop, Councillor Pauline White and Councillor Vince Daly. I have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Fiona, that we received those apologies. All in agreement, that please say aye.
Aye.
That's against, that's carried. I won't bother with today's affirmation because we are receiving presentations today and we have no business that we will need to deal to, but we will always act with the integrity that this community expects. No conflict of interest as far as today's agenda items, and we do have a recording device, Graham, and we're being live streamed. Thank you. Is there any urgent business, councillors? No, that's fine, thank you. Okay, so that does get us through all the routine stuff, Stuart. And it's lovely to have you with us today. Of course, we do have Ross zooming in from Mount Lyford.
See that.
And Pauline may or may not come on online as well. So I'm not sure where things are sitting there. But Stuart, this is, we're at a really busy time, aren't we really? There is a lot going on in central government, which often that does trigger a lot going on in local government as well. And we are at a time where we need to, the strength is actually working stronger in that relationship. And I guess it's always valuable for us to have you come in and we do appreciate when you come in via Zoom, but it's actually really neat to have you in the room with us today and actually have those conversations from a face-to-face perspective. There was only one question that came through from Councillor Ross Barnes, so he can speak to that in a minute. I know Graham canvassed that out to councillors, but it's probably, whilst we can answer Ross's question or we can present that question to you, it's really good to hear your perspective of what's happening at a national level. I know, there's a lot of reform packages that are being rolled or cascaded into communities. So I'm really interested to hear from your perspective, actually, the intent of that and actually how, if we can learn and glean some of that information from your perspective to enhance and enable our communities, that would be really valuable. So yeah, perhaps if I just hand over to you, we've got about half an hour and we'll just have a fairly relaxed discussion. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. It is much better to be here live than it is by Zoom, but it doesn't always work. So
yeah,
it's great it worked out today. Yeah, look, it has been very busy, and I actually spoke to Master Builders, and I think I used an analogy which I think is quite valid, that it's a bit like a building project in that we've had to clear the site before we could start building, and so there's been a lot of repeal legislation which we've had to go through and using urgency to do that. We've also put some other bills through using urgency. Yes, we're doing a lot of that, but there's a lot to do, and quite frankly, a lot that needs to be done yesterday. And yet, if we look at our coalition agreements, there shouldn't really be any surprises because we've signalled it all in those agreements, and we're delivering on them. What is a surprise and upsetting some people, and I can understand why they're upset, is the fiscal mess that we found. For example, the ferries and now Dunedin Hospital project, where actually there's a common theme running through them all. That there's an original estimate of the cost. Of course, things do tend to blow out from an original cost, but these have gone massively over. Dunedin Hospital's 10 times what the original cost was. In the case of the ferries, it's 4 to 5 times, depending on what number you use. But it's outrageously difficult to try and deliver those projects at that cost. And then you have to go back and look at the business case originally. Is that actually what we need and what we want? And in terms of the ferries, highly questionable that it was worthwhile going down a large ferry case because of the difficulties in navigating Tory Channel. In terms of Dunedin, look, I don't know enough about it, but the reality is there was no pathology department included in the plans. There was no car parking included in the plans, and yet it was looking like costing $3 billion on a site that really wasn't that suitable anyway, and it had a lot of remedial work to be done on it. So it's easy to criticise with hindsight, because all of our vision is 2020 in hindsight, but the theme about cost controls is a real concern, I think, to us all. And the rollout of projects during COVID were highly criticised by the Auditor General, where it was about shoveling money out the door. It wasn't about whether you're getting value for money and whether the money was being actually spent on what it was intended to be spent on. So, and I think that sort of ties in with those issues. We've just announced our plan for our last quarter and what we're going to do, and there's a lot of things on that list, but it's being driven mainly by RMA changes. There'll also no building control changes coming through as well, which are all linked in together to try and get on top of those. There's still some more law and order stuff to do, but we need people to feel safe at home, and we need people to do stuff in order to grow our economy. So people can build a house if they need to or want to, and they can build a business if they want to, and have the ability to do that and build infrastructure without huge delays. There was a story in the Ashburton Guardian. I know this is not your area. I came from that area, so my brothers keep me up with the goings on there. But Lake Camp is running very low on water, and used to be managed by the local farmers, and they would take the water out of the river and keep the lake up, the lake level up. And the council, the Ashburton District Council, looked at trying to reinstate that, but they have assessed the cost at $500,000 for resource consents and consultation to do that, and they've decided not to do it. So we think those things, I'm not saying that's right, maybe it shouldn't be done. I'm not making a judgment on that, but that consenting costs and bureaucracy would cost that amount of money for something just seems outrageous. We've just reported, and it was released today at 8 o'clock this morning, the Finance and Expenditure Committee's inquiry into climate adaptation. And that report is pan-party rather than this cross-party agreement. So it's I mean, some places it looks like it's not like anything to do with the National Party, but we're part of it. At New Zealand First, Greens, Te Pāti Māori and Labour were all on that select committee. And so we are looking at climate adaptation, and that will inform a bill that will be brought in to deal with climate adaptation. One of the big things we've found in that, in Wairoa, you might be familiar, there was a flooding event post the big Cyclone Gabrielle flooding event, where the river bar mouth was not open at the bar, and they were arguing over whether to do anything about it, with the local district council, you know, basically having their hands tied by the regional council having to get consent. In the end, nothing was done, and more flooding damage occurred than needed to occur. And if you cast your mind back to the floods from a few years ago here in North Canterbury, not river mouth issues, but issues in riverbed maintenance caused much more flooding damage than needed to occur. And we have this view in regional councils that they want rivers to be rewilded. Well, actually, we live in a highly modified environment. Our forebears planted willow trees to contain rivers within their banks, and then they built stock banks. Christchurch wouldn't be very well off if it didn't have the stock banks on the Waimakariri. And that's all very well, but if you let weeds grow, I'm calling willow trees a weed, in the riverbeds, you will end up deflecting the river. And Linda and I saw that with the Ashley River, where there was a willow tree and a small island in the middle that deflected the river into the bank and ate away quite a bit of a farmer's land. Right? So in other places, rivers were choked with trees that caused water to come out and damage buildings. So that shouldn't happen. If the old catchment board days, the river fairways were kept clear, and allowing the gravel, which is a natural process for the gravel to go down the river and go out to sea, to continue. And I've written an article about an incident in this electorate where there was a project to resurface the road, and the contractor wanted to get gravel and screen it out of the river, which is nearby. That would have cost $20,000 for a consent to get into the river, whereas and unlikely that he would agree. And so instead, it's a 30-kilometre one-way trip, carting gravel at a total cost of $100,000 more to the project than it would have been otherwise. So those sorts of things are what we're trying to get on top of these RMA reforms, and to ensure that not that the environment takes second place at all, but we have to accept we have some, by our being here, we have some impact on the environment. You know, if you don't want to be here, that's fine, but don't count me in on that one. But we need to manage that in a way that's not enabling bureaucracy to defeat the good outcome for everyone. And I mean that in an economic and social sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it, really, to try and unpick that or understand the economic parameters, but actually the social and cultural impacts as well, you know, to balance it all up. And I mean all of those in their full context, actually.
Well, it is always a balancing act, and the reality is whenever you do something or don't do something, you're going to upset a group in society, and that's why we get paid to do what we do. It's for us to stand in between that and because the people that work for the council are doing what we tell them to do, right? Well, the framework that councils have and government has, and we're the people that take the flag, you know, and that's what we sign up for. But we want to make that as, we think the balance is tipped too far one way, and we want to bring it back.
Thank you. And just before we go into Ross's question, you know, in the relationship between local government and central government, Stuart, you know, you know, there is an important, it's a really important pathway, isn't it, really, you know, and be no surprise to you, but, you know, local government talks about localism across all domains, you know, but we need to understand that the legislation doesn't have that negative effect and builds that localism capacity, you know, so it's that hand in the glove and making sure that we're working in that relationship, not against that relationship.
Well, I totally agree, and
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer to have more localism
Yeah.
approach. However, when you get Hastings Council acting in the way they are, you have to wonder, you know, whether council deserves that right. They're having school children, unelected school children, on council committees with voting rights is, you know, abrogating the rights, the democratic rights of the ratepayers, and they're doing that. You know, and they seem to willfully think that that's their right to do that. And I don't think it is.
I'm not aware of the case, to be fair, but anyway.
Well, that's
yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah,
Their
okay.
Youth Advisory Council, they've appointed them to committees and they have voting rights on. So they're making decisions on ratepayers' futures and they're not elected. And I don't think that's right.
That's interesting.
If they want to run for, if they're 18 and they want to run for council, good on them, go for it.
Yeah.
That's their right if they're elected. And it goes back to it's the same issue with multi-wards and not consulting the ratepayers. And so I think that's where councils, in my humble opinion, I think they need to be cognizant of that. If you're going to have want to have more say in your own affairs and what you're doing, then you need to act responsibly. And I don't think that's responsible action. I think.
Interesting. I mean, that might trigger some questions as well, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm happy to.
Shall I have a crack at the nitrate one now?
Yeah, I think you better.
Yeah.
That'll make Ross is sitting up there. Ross happy. Yeah.
Well,
so let's do that, and then we'll just.
Well, that's
yeah.
ECAN. So quite frankly, I don't have an answer for you, Ross. But other than we are trying to make sense of all of these things and making it as easy as possible for people to. Yeah.
I think he's happy with the answer.
Yeah. Or he's got a booking.
Didn't know he
holidays.
had a keyboard.
Ross, are you happy with that? I mean, you probably understood the context of your discussion, and you know it's good to actually raise these issues. If nothing else, it keeps us alive in our minds as well. So, you know, any response to that, Ross?
Yeah, look, thank you, and look, thank you, Stuart, for your the words you had previous, because it's all about the regulatory environment not stifling the Kiwi dream, and you know we're here for the people and not forgetting the environment. So look, appreciate your words, and I understand the government is looking at standardising the consenting requirements for wastewater treatment plants, and will there be a simplified process for private wastewater disposal? So it's sort of that whole package of, as you say, you want people that want to be able to build houses if they want to, but they're not able to at the moment because of the regulatory environment regarding wastewater consents with ECAN at the moment. So it's pleasing to hear that wheels are turning in a positive way for our small communities. So I just hope that you can follow through and that there is a way forward for our small communities.
I think that the expression on Stuart's face, he understands what you're talking about. Yeah. So that's cool. You know, just like local water done well. Any comments from you around that? I mean, you'll be very aware that as a district, we're working quite diligently through that process.
Yeah.
You know, any feedback or any information that you'd like to provide us as far as how that's progressing through from your perspective?
Well, I think it's going well at this stage, and certainly that people are, certainly councils are talking amongst themselves about how they might act together. I think that's a sensible development. And ultimately, I don't think it's a good idea that councils amalgamate necessarily. I think certainly in the South Island, I just don't think we're really good case for that. But that said, I also think that I'm a fan of unitary authority. I think councils should be, I think we should get rid of regional councils, quite frankly, and have unitary authorities, which enables a one-stop shop. As you know, I deal with 5 councils, and it's not that the other councils are difficult to deal with, but at least you know with Marlborough, you go and talk to the one person, you get the answer for both parts of a question sometimes. Otherwise, you've got to go through the other processes, and I think that's helpful, and it's helpful to have everyone in the same building, I think. So, more efficient. But if you look at successful economies around the world, they have quite small local governments, but that have a lot more power. And so that does work well because they are responsible to their own communities. I go back to the Hastings one. If you start getting ideas like that, no one's going to support that.
Yeah, certainly having decision-making capacity closer to home is by far the best example of best outcomes, because that, I mean, we can see our constituents, our residents every day at the supermarket or the sports day or whatever, and they keep us to account or hold us to account to some of the actions or inaction of you know, our decision-making capacity. But it's also beholden to us as councillors to help communities understand the dynamic that we're faced with as well. You know, the pool of capital expenditures this big, but the financial capacity is this big, you know, so it's all of that sort of information sharing that is part of that collective capacity, I guess, and that's the value of this discussion as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, welcome, Vince. Good to see you. Or the bailiff couldn't fix it or something. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Going again.
Anyway, good to see you. So thank you for coming. But I just check in with councillors if there's any questions. Thank you, Vanessa.
Stuart, just further to your comments about what's going on with the Hastings Council at the moment. Given that Sandra Hazelhurst has said that this move is in accordance to the Local Government Act, is Minister Brown planning on not necessarily intervening, but are there conversations going on about, you know, this is a threat to our representative democracy as far as I'm concerned? Is this something that's going to be addressed?
Well, it's only recently come up, Vanessa. It's a good question, and I'm sure he will have something to say about that in the coming days. But it is absolutely a threat to democracy, and but I think it's a threat to all councils' reputations. I mean, it's just you're all tarred with the same brush, unfortunately. It's that's not justified, but that's the way people will think.
Subsequent to that, actually, your other comment about Maori wards, I find it interesting that was 83% of councils recently voted. That was one of our remits in favour of putting that decision back to council. But I find it kind of ironic, really, because as far as I'm concerned, and I agree with you, that putting that decision back to the community, is that not the heart of localism?
Yes, it is.
So,
but communities didn't have a say. And yes, I think it was outrageous. What was worse in Marlborough, I don't know if you're aware, in Marlborough, the councillors were marched over to the convention centre where iwi had been invited to vote on it. Not this time, the first time for their Maori ward, to allow Maori ward. And there was only one councillor that voted against it. I think that's outrageous. It was kind of intimidation, if you like. I think that's weak on the part of the councillors that didn't stand up for their community. And it's a misguided view, which is quite commonplace in international politics at the moment, that the elite leaders know better than the people that voted them in there. And I think that's wrong.
I agree.
Interesting. Okay, Robbie, question?
Yeah, the Prime Minister gave a fairly blunt message Wellington, around councils, and nice to have some things like that.
Hmm.
Is there anything coming down the track that, you know, we wouldn't want to be influenced by what the naughty ones are doing, because we're one of the good ones? You know, there's no tightening of the boundaries or anything
No,
likely to come down?
there's been very good feedback, where a lot of people actually agreed with what the Prime Minister said, and quite frankly, Tory Whanau has not covered herself in glory in the
No.
last few weeks either. The reality is, being a councillor and a mayor or a mayor is a really responsible job, and you want responsible people in those jobs. I mean, there's a reason why it's right through history that the leaders were called elders. They were elder, and they were people that had had some skin off their knuckles through life, and they had learned a few hard lessons along the way. Whatever you're leaning in politics, you want someone that has had some experience in life to make some decisions, and some of the decisions coming out of some of those councils is not very good. Now, the participation at elections may have something to do with that. Maybe, you know, I don't know how we gain more respect for the roles that people have, but maybe it's, you know, lessened because of the actions of some of these councils that people think, well, what does it matter? I think that matters more, quite frankly, but not everyone sees it that way. I don't know, I'm a traditionalist, but I personally prefer the polling booth than the mail-in ballots, and I think that may well have part to do with it. I don't know, I could be completely wrong, only a personal view.
Cool, thank you, Fiona.
Thanks, Stuart. Just a brief comment, probably in a similar vein. You said a moment ago, if one local council does something stupid, everybody's tarred with the same brush. And I think, well, certainly there have been some periods you could look around, you could look too far to see some wasteful spending at times or not prioritising. But it is a little bit frustrating that at a higher level, when you make very generalised comments from the top, you're actually tarring the brush, because it's not, in some instances, it's you're labelling everybody the same, and certainly it gives voice to people at a local level that are suffering from their rates increases and alternative thinking. It actually almost gives them a license to target their local council even further, because the leadership's saying they're not doing their job properly as well. So I just think that when we're making those generalised comments, you might want to take a bit of that into account. It is very, at all levels of governance, I guess it's a tough gig at the moment, because it's tough times and it gets that way, and we do sign up for it. But I believe in trying to support both up and down rather than a total generalisation. So that's just a comment I wanted to make.
Well, I agree with you, and I include politicians in bad behaviour, tarring all politicians. That absolutely is the case. But I think the Prime Minister did qualify his comments. I mean, it was too good an opportunity to miss, being in a building that cost a lot of money that the council didn't have, and just down the street from a leak. And quite literally, I mean, I'm in Wellington a lot. There's a new leak somewhere every day because they didn't invest in their infrastructure.
Anyway, we'll have one more question, Gary, and then we'll break for morning tea. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Stuart, looking back, I guess, at the current government, the coalition government, and how it's tracking, and you referred earlier to the fourth quarter of the current term, and you've announced now the plan. It appears that the government has taken quite a strong business type approach, if that's the right words, in terms of being clear up front what they stand for, the first 90-day objectives, and so on. Now the fourth quarter of the current year. Can you give us some insight in terms of what the second year of the coalition government might look like? Just not in detail, but just at a high level. Are we moving in the second year from sorting out all the stuff at the ground level? You know, you referred to it earlier, the issues you inherited in your words. Is the second year about growing the country, growing the economy, or what's the second year all about?
Well, I think you can go and read coalition agreements, you'll see what's on the list to do. But yes, it is. I think we're beyond clearing the site now. Well, there's still some things to repeal to fix, but largely we're bringing in more like enabling legislation, such as the RMA reforms that are coming through, and they won't work through until next year. There's a lot of stuff like that happening. So yeah, I think it's the more I think about it, the more valid the analogy is. You know, so buildings, sometimes when you're building them, nothing seems to happen for a while, and then all of a sudden it seems like there's been a great leap. It just takes a while before you get from the foundations to get the walls up and the roof on and all those sorts of things. So yeah, look, we've got a very clear plan. There's no surprises. But that said, we're in a very unstable world at the moment. We're at the moment, not to get onto geopolitics for too much, but what's happening in the Middle East could have a profound effect on our economy. We've got the US elections as well. I know where all the smart money's going, which is not popular here in New Zealand, but that's the reality. And I think that's probably how it's going to play out, but we'll have to wait and see. So they have, while it's widely respected as the world's largest and most successful democracy, democracy does not appear anywhere in their constitution. So.
I think this has been a really good discussion, and it just shows that how much easier and more beneficial it is when you have that face to face.
Yeah, you can look at people on the screen, you get much more feedback.
Correct.
Visual.
Yeah.
Choose. Can I just finish on one thing?
Yeah.
So we have the Prime Minister here on Monday next week at the Harden Open Court. So I hope that you plan to come, and if you do, please respond to me by email, or who, Linda?
Or Richard Siding.
Or Richard Siding. Just for planning purposes for numbers. But, I think we're going to, judging by the response so far, it's going to be a really good crowd. So,
4 o'clock.
4
o'clock.
Yeah.
And the United Rugby Club rooms in Hart.
Yes, and a Minister of Agriculture will be there as well.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much for your time, Stuart. It's been a really good discussion, and is this the last one for this year?
Yes.
It's the last one for this year, so that's rather spooky. So I'm sure Graham will set us up with 3 or 4 sessions over next year, and really appreciate the connection and the relationship that we have with you, Stuart, and appreciate the time that you provide us to, to weave that link between local and central government, and we've talked about the criticality of that. So appreciate what you do for constituents and the support that you can provide us as a council. Thank you.
Excellent.
And dare I say it for the first time, I'll see you before, but Christmas wishes and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, thank you.
It's spooky. Yeah.
It seems early though, doesn't it?
It does. It just seems a wee bit.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got a lot on. I think we're going to be sitting
I think,
right up until just before Christmas.
yeah, we've probably got a lot on as well. So we'll be working right up to
Yeah,
Christmas
so
as
we'll
well.
have time.
But welcome, Dave. You've just arrived, and it's really appreciated. I know you had a Fonterra meeting, but it's good to see that you've come along to share with
Starting
us.
irrigation made me extremely late, so I gave up on that idea. So
Oh.
your first.
Anyway, we are going to break for morning tea, councillors. We do have another presentation this morning from the Hurunui District Land Care Group, and they'll be here in the chambers at 10:45. So we'll break for morning tea now, and then we'll be ready to welcome our next presentation and guests. So thank you. spread in the Farmer Weekly last week, which gave me some tips that I could introduce you with. So, you know, just for councillors, the Hurunui District Land Care Group is a farmer-driven group. It was established in 2016, and their advisors, like Billy, support farmers through the ever-increasing regulatory environment. They provide on-ground advice and support best farm practice, and to help our farmers remain confident and resilient in this market that we are facing at the moment. So it's, you know, I think the Hurunui District Land Care Group has really grown to be a group of significance and support that you and guidance that you have given to farmers over that time. But I think you're filling in a really important space to give that guidance on the ground, and the work that you do is really very much appreciated. It's probably really helpful for Billy and for Ian for you to all introduce yourselves as well. Some of you will know about the work of the Land Care Group, but of course that's what we've got you here today for, is to understand better and get an update of the work that you're doing. So I might just ask for a quick introduction. Gary, if I can just start with you, we'll just go around the room. Thank you.
Hi there, Gary Jackson, South Ward Councillor, living here in Amberley.
Thanks, Gary.
Robbie Burrows, Southwood, living in Amberley.
Fiona Harris, Eastwood, living in Milwaukee.
I'm Vanessa McPherson, Southwood Councillor.
Hi, Tom Davies, West Ward Councillor. And
Hi, I'm a member of the Green Group. Thanks, Daly. Hi, Dave Hislop, West Ward Councillor, Dairy Farm, and member of the Mary Independent Irrigators.
Karen Armstrong, I live in Waikerie and I'm a West Ward Councillor.
Thank you, and I've introduced to Hamish as our CEO and Graham's our governance advisor, and we do have on screen Ross. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself to Billy and to Ian?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, Ross Barnes, West Ward councillor, live at Mount Lyford, and I'm actually under the H and the in that picture that you have there.
Are we? Are you? Oh, we know you're here, Ross, so that's okay. So I'm just going to hand it over to both you, Ian and Billy, and Graham's here to give you all the IT support that you need, because I would be next door to useless.
Yeah,
so, you know. But yeah, we're in your hands, and I think we've got sort of 30 to 40 minutes, whatever's required to work through your presentation. So thank you.
Appreciate your introduction. Thank you very much. You've taken most of my speech from me, which is I'm actually quite new to the scene, really. I've just started the chairs role in the last 6 months, so most of the good work that has happened is prior to my time. I've been on the committee for the last couple of years. I was actually in the original group that helped form it, which was basically out of the red tape from ECAN, where dryland farmers looked like there was going to be a grandparenting issue, and we may not be able to develop and grow our businesses as we would have liked to have hoped. And so through that regulation, this catchment group was formed. But we've tried to turn that potential negative into an opportunity. And so a lot of the projects that you see is what's coming out of that original environmental challenge is now the opportunity to grow and develop our farms further. So I'll just put up a map here, and as you can see, the Muri, so we've got just over 300 members, just over 300,000 hectares of farmland is within our membership. So it's a pretty big old chunk of the Hurunui district, and the missing link in the middle is the Muri irrigation scheme. But we try to work closely with them, obviously, on any issues that are united with. We have the occasional challenge, but most of the time we work pretty well with them. And so when you take in the whole area, then we've got, I think, an exceptionally good spread geographically, and also diversification. We've got all sorts of farms, lifestyles, forestry, obviously sheep, beef, deer, and so it covers a whole range. And the challenges, as you know, every farm's different, so not one recipe is going to work for everyone. So the beauty of it up until now has been that we've been able to work one-on-one with individuals. And so a lot of the work that Billy and his team have done is one-on-one, but as our funding model has changed slightly, we're moving more to a group approach, seminars, catchment groups, those sorts of things. So Billy will explain what some of our new projects are shortly. Obviously, it's grassroots. It's managed and run by the farmer members who pay a nominal fee every year, but we've been able to attract a lot of funding as well, which I'll talk about shortly. But it's run by farmers for the benefit of the farming community. But in saying that, we feel like we're pretty well connected with farm forestry and ECAN and lots of other groups, and then obviously the district council trying to make the most of what we can. If you've got a dollar, you've got to try to leverage it and work as strongly as we can with other groups. So the main topics, obviously, we started off as sort of like advocacy group against some challenging regulations, but we've grown far more than that. So the funding model has allowed us to get into native tree plantings, riparian fencing, a lot of work that Billy will describe as sort of got an environmental twist, but it's also giving us a social license, the ability to be able to grow and develop our businesses. If it wasn't for the Haranui District Landcare Group, there'd be about $12 million that wouldn't have come into the Haranui. So we feel like while the members are contributing a substantial part in terms of their membership and also the work they do, it's allowed us to really leverage a lot of funds, new money coming into the district. So that's been a real, especially when times are tough, to get an extra dollar from somewhere else is very valuable. Our main sort of groups that we work with, obviously with Billy's team has a range of skills and experiences, and previous roles I've had is with ECAN and beef and lamb and oversee a fertiliser program. So there's lots of skills within our team, but we also bring in a lot of expert speakers, seminars and things like that. So try to be more of we don't offer a solution to everything. We try to be able to provide expert advice if and when we need it. That's probably me, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll hand over to Billy now. He'll be able to explain all the good stuff he does day to day.
Yeah, cool. So I'll just give you a bit of an update on some of the projects we're currently doing on. First of all, a video on some of the stream health assessments that we've been undertaking throughout the district. The purpose of why we're here today is we're undertaking several stream health assessments throughout the Haranui district. The purpose of that is for our farmers to better understand water quality, what's living in the stream, to be able to maintain or enhance water quality within the district.
We're doing that with the Stream Health Assessment Kit by NIWA, the Farm Surface Water Quality Monitoring Kit by Hill Laboratories and Environmental DNA by Whittle Labs. These measures combined will help us get a better understanding of the state of this river, and we can then advise farmers on how they could go about maintaining and improving its health.
Well, yeah, so that was some of the work we've just been doing. So out of that work, we did sort of 8 stream walks, and that covered sort of 10 catchments that hadn't really had any water monitoring or very limited water monitoring, because that's sort of second order streams and things, not like the big rivers like Haranui and that. So it gave farmers a lot of, great information about things that are happening more specific to their farm, like at a farm level. And then they've been able to use some of that information for some of the assurance quality schemes, like the New Zealand Farm Assurance, and then New Zealand Merino also has one, and that helps improve access to markets overseas, but also on farm, provides them with a premium for their product. It's also, taught a lot of the members just different water quality techniques. So we sort of covered 3 there. So there's the environmental DNA, which you put it out and it collects all the DNA that's in the stream, what's interacted with that stream in the past sort of 48 hours. And then it provides you with a big sort of graph of everything that's interacted with that stream, from like deer and pigs to every fish that's in the stream. And then chemical water monitoring as well. So with the Hills Lab kit, being able to understand nitrates and E. coli and phosphorus and then out of that, the ecologists that joined us also wrote a report on how we can improve those things, or if needed, or ways to maintain the results that we're seeing. We're also able to involve some of the school children from around this district as well. Why our school brought their senior classroom out and sort of chiv it. So yeah, really good to see that next generation getting involved.
So does everybody in the catchment actually receive all of that information about
Yeah, so we
ecological assessment?
we kept it, like anyone can access it if they ask, but we've just sent it to the farmers in that area instead of sending 10 reports around everyone. Just you tried to tailor it a bit, but if anyone wants it, can access it.
It's quite early days for us. We're trying to get on the front foot to find out what's out there and what remediation may be required. So, with the freshwater plans coming in and all the other regulations, we're just trying to get a snapshot of what's happening now, what we may need to deal with and be prepared for. We certainly don't have the answers. In previous roles, I worked in research and water quality, and it's just a nightmare, particularly in these smaller streams that are really dependent on rainfall runoff. So they're not strong flowing streams. So the flow rates, what's in the water, just spikes and troughs all the time. So really hard to get a consistent trend line. So we're just early stages for us. We're still, as a committee, we're still trying to figure out what we do with the information, how we get out there to a form that farmers will be able to say, right, this makes sense. I know what to do. This is my action plan. This is what it will cost or whatever. So yeah, it's exciting. There's some really cool stuff coming out of it.
It's a good visionary project though, isn't it?
Yeah, we just need to get started. Right. Once we get started, I think we'll be able to
Yeah.
get a better understanding of where we're going with.
And like any water monitoring program, you sort of need long-term data before you can start making decisions. But yeah, it's a great educational piece as well.
So parts of the reports that were done on the individual stream walks are also linked long-term ECN data that's been happening in nearby streams for 30 plus years, I think some of them. So instead of just looking at one snapshot, we're trying to compare that with what's happening over a longer period of time, make it a little bit more robust. But it's going to take a while to tease out where the easy wins are and where the bits are. It's going to change.
That's good. Well done.
Yeah, and there's some of our funding through NPI, where one of the work streams is to provide a bit more catchment context. So part of that work, we've installed weather stations, so 11 weather stations around the Taranui, looking at where other weather stations are and then putting them out in the district with representative climate and soil types for the HDLG members, and then they can access all that information on our website to make irrigation decisions and planting decisions, so on. So yeah, a lot of our members use this daily. And then we've also had some outside consultants put together a water quality report on all of the data in the Haranui, so the long-term ECAN data from the past 30 years they've collected, and then wrote a report on how that's placed against policy. So the new national policy statement for fresh water and the ECAN Inland Water Regional Plan, and then also how each of those rivers is placed, nationally and regionally. That report's publicly available, and it's already being utilised for some members of our groups, like consents for the new water irrigation consents and things like that.
Those weather stations online, Billy?
Yeah, they are.
So we could access that weather station data?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
through the website.
Yeah, through our website. And as Ian alluded to earlier on, we're sort of slowly moving in, starting to support more of our sort of sub-catchment groups, which will focus on their specific catchment issues. So the first one that I was going to talk about is the Blythe catchment group. So there's an image on the top there that's, you can see the dotted outlines, the Blythe catchment, that's sort of slowly spreading a little bit north to the Haranui. So the Blythe's focused on pest control around mustlers and rodents, possums. So The Lanky Group provides funding for these groups sort of around the $6,000 mark to get them started, and then we facilitate the groups to get external funding. The council's actually funded them for some traps, and so is Manpower. So, and we've recently helped them get external funding through the RADA Foundation up for $20,000 to expand their trapping network. So this picture that, and we've also, so we've set them up on Trap NZ so they can monitor all of their trapping and where their traps are and sort of what the trapping effort is and things like that. So that's a picture showing sort of 150 traps in the catchment, and from in about sort of 10 months work of removed 1,000 pests from the catchment, which is really good effort.
So just in terms of the subgroups, that I guess the key thing is most of you will be involved in community groups, but a lot of the challenges are, you know, the structure, insurance, and getting funding, and all. There's lots of good ideas out there, but to actually package it up into a group that can progress forward. So what the Haurunga District Landcare Group provides, almost an umbrella organisation where these subgroups can apply to us for funding and therefore sit underneath our insurance and you know, police capability in that as well. And it allows them to then branch off and get their own funding, and it's as long as they have sort of similar goals and interests to what we do, then we're quite happy for those groups to proliferate. And so we've got 6 at the moment of pretty much fully funding for the first year, which gives them a bouncing board which they can then go forward and get further funding if they need.
So in the early years, you got quite a bit of government funding.
Yes.
To run your scheme in Lanky.
Yes.
Is it now self-funding or in?
It was in the last year of the funding, this financial.
Yes. So the model's changed. We're fully funded to get out one-on-one with farmers, sit around coffee tables, figure out what we needed to do, what experts we needed to bring in to tick all the boxes, get all the paperwork done, farm plans, winter grazing consents, all that sort of stuff. As that money came to an end, we reached all our milestones, we were provided with some bridging finance effectively, which would allow us to transition from that one-on-one model into what we're doing now with our group work. So we're saying a slightly different way we operate, but still trying to achieve the same things, but instead of one-on-one, spread the money further by dealing with groups of 10 or 12 people. And then hopefully they can go forth and get their own funding, and those groups themselves will become self-funding. But at the moment, we get membership money, but we still rely on external funds to be able to keep operating at the level we have been up until now.
So just listening to the narrative of what you said, so that outside the Murray irrigation area, so now you're picking up a lot of the irrigation work and the work around the consents, you know, as we know, there's a lot of work around that.
So I guess to clarify that, a lot of the work we'll be doing was with individual irrigation consents rather than group ones. So your group one will have certain, be it collective or whatever it is that you need to do.
They're still individuals because they're independent, yeah.
Yeah, so the one caveat on the government funding that comes in is that we don't do consent work, individual consent work. You have to use a consultant to do that.
But we will help provide land use capability reports, whatever information needs to go into the consent that the farmer can then put forward. So we don't do it, we don't have a regulatory body, we don't tick the boxes, we just provide the information that they can then go forward with.
Yeah. One of the other groups is the Cheviot Irrigators Group, which, you know, provides that structure to report to ECAN, and that, yeah, reporting in the group.
So they're quite separate to you or a subgroup.
They are subgroups of the Lanky.
So the dryland collective, the Cheviot Irrigators Group will sit underneath the Haurunga District Landcare umbrella.
Yeah, otherwise you're an independent irrigator with your own land use consent, or you're in irrigation. So it helps, you know, that pathway to compliance as well.
We're struggling to keep up with the rules ourselves. So originally it was the ECAN portal where every individual had to go into the portal, and then they agreed that if we formed a collective, then that collective body could just do one annual report. And so we're just taking the punches as we go and trying to evolve. So it's not the same organisation it was when it first started as a dryland group.
Yeah,
we had it
that
on.
was what I was just making it.
Yeah.
It moved
Yes, we had to because there's members that had irrigation on effectively dryland farms, like a small percentage of the property. So yeah, we can't do all things to all people, but we do try to provide a service where we can get you to a point where you can then do your consent under your own stand.
Right, thank you.
Cool. And then the picture below is a picture from the leader pest control groups that are focused more around larger pests, so pigs, deer and goats. So there's a group of farmers there and they're trying to put a coordinated control effort into controlling pigs and things, and they're using some quite innovative methods. So we involve them with an expert advisor who's been involved in Pest Free Banks Peninsula and the pig control program there. So the picture on the bottom there's a smart trap, so it uses a remote drop gate and it's 24/7 monitoring on the trap with a Wi-Fi controlled camera, and you can trap up to about 30 pigs within the trap at once. And he's also currently writing a control plan for the catchment group there, and yeah, helping facilitate them to get access to further funding as well, and want to utilise this as sort of a trial for other farms within the Haranui, because it's a problem, increasing problem everywhere really. We also support the JED catchment group up in Cheviot. They do a lot of environmental education work with the local school, and they have a planting and a restoration program in a wetland there. Another one of the irrigating groups is the Hawaii Independent Irrigators. Most of them are in the Mary irrigation scheme, so this is sort of where we start to cross over a little bit. We help support them by funding their monthly water monitoring programs. They do quite an intensive program throughout the Emu Plains. It's historically an area with reasonably high nitrates, so they're trying to get a really good understanding of where there are issues within their catchment and where they can put effort into improving water quality. Another initiative we just started funding is the poplar pole nurseries. So I'm sure you're well aware of the ECAN SCAR program with poplar poles throughout the district. This initiative is just putting poplar pole nurseries on farms to build like a more resilient stock and, you know, more poplar poles to go out throughout the district. So we've helped support putting some of these nurseries in. There are about 200 plants per nursery. As I sort of talked about before, we've started to, one of the key things that's been with some of the red meat people at the moment is the sector is the Farm Assurance Plus program. So that offers all of the farms a 10-cent premium on their carcass weight at the works if they meet this assurance quality program around people management, health and safety, and environmental outcomes. So we've been supporting a number of the members to obtain this accreditation and then to maintain it as well. So that includes the stream walks like you saw earlier on, FEP updates, doing visual soil assessments, so looking at what's the management on farm, how that's affecting the soil, doing winter grazing plans and nutrient budgets and more. It's quite a large body of work, and it's, yeah, a lot of members have said how beneficial it is to incorporate some of these ideas into their business and build a more sustainable business for future generations. And then, yes, Ian talked about, we also offer workshops. So we've ran 9 workshops since July. There's your feature, Murray.
You should have actually identified a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So these workshops, we really try and just provide value where we see it at the time. So as you can see, we've covered a lot of different topics from, you know, biodiversity, soil and watershed irrigation, mental and physical resilience with Lance Burdett, some more around the farm assurance, and we filled your cup women's workshop, which has been really, really popular within the district. pest control, first aid, and most recently doing sustainable finance and an economic update from Brad Olsen. So yeah, we've been really fortunate with our funding to get some, really amazing speakers, inspiring speakers into the district. And as you can see from the quote, people, get a lot out of these days. So almost 500 attendees and over the 9 workshops. So that's pretty much it from us. Thanks for having us, but do you have any further questions?
Look, Billy and Ian, I really appreciate you coming along and just giving us a bit of an update of the really important, critical work that you're working, within, the change from those individual farm to that group, but actually getting, members together and sort of chewing the fat, so to speak, is really important way of actually to build that resilience within our farming community. And, you're obviously doing that and meeting the needs of the ever increasing demand of, within our farming community. So yeah, I just check out with, Ross, you're online. I'm not sure whether you've got a question, but is there any further questions for Ian or Billy around the room of what they've heard? Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, it sounds great, mate. The rivers are always going to be probably like the blood test of the land. But I was wondering, where's the main emphasis? The land or water, or I know it's all around farming practice and things like that. I'm trying to sort of figure where this fits in with other water groups that may or may not come along, because it sounds like you guys are doing a pretty broad sort of a job.
Yeah, so obviously ECAN do the overall regional approach, and so they're governed by national regulations and flow flows and that sort of thing. Our role more is to support farmers on their individual properties or lifestyle blocks, whatever it is, to better understand what their challenges are on the farm and what they may need to do about it through, winter grazing, farm environment plans, all the support we can give them, just trying to tie that into what it looks like in terms of the water flow quality in the area. There's been a big push obviously for riparian planting and natives, and a lot of the work that we've done over the last few years is trying to protect waterways, but we probably didn't have that good understanding of what the baseline looked like. So we're trying to get back up to speed now to do the stream walks, get the regional reports done, is find out where we're placed, and then what sort of actions will benefit the water going forward. But it's different. The reason it hasn't been done, probably it's been a too hard basket for quite a while. Right? So soil testing, pasture sampling is so reliable, it's so consistent. You can have 50 years of data and it's percentage points different. Water sampling is all over the place, right? And so, but it's time, we need to get on with it. We need to get our heads around it and figure out what we need to do. So it's only a starting point, and we're working with the experts, James Manby's and ECAN, and all that are all part of the project. So it's very early days, but it's more focused on that on-farm situation.
Really like the idea of bringing the school kids in. You start at that end, they'll be smarter down the track, won't they?
Yeah, they love it too.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks, Robbie. Vince, I think.
Last week I went to a pest layer and biosecurity meeting at Rolleston, and it was interesting. Osprey man was talking, and they're saying that they've really got on the top of the TB now. So in another 5 or 6 years, actually, New Zealand will be TB free, and that then comes with funding. There's a levy at the moment that dairy farmers paying for every animal $12, and I'm paying 3 or 4. But that funding could, when there's it's for TB control, not for possums. So it's part of it. But what's going to happen is the vet there talking said that when we don't have the problem with the TB, the funding will stop. And he said the possum population will actually go back up to what it was before they ever started. And he said within 10 years, they'll be eating their way through New Zealand. And he said that's an issue that's saying it already. Yeah, and that's going to be an issue, he said, because at the moment the funding's there for TB. So when you've got TB beaten and it becomes that it's so low that it becomes that it's not an issue, it's telling us farmers that we have to keep paying where it's,
I could be cynical, but that's a way of keeping them in a job, but if he comes around and says to me that it is one mechanism that we can lower the greenhouse gas that actually works by reducing the predators of it, then the dock estate or whatever can fix more, okay, but they ask them to keep paying the levy to keep his job. It doesn't seem like a good idea.
I know, I'm just saying that it's going to be an issue for us to work through with it, because it becomes a New Zealand thing. It's, why should farmers have to be paying the whole price when everyone gets a benefit? And you know,
That's our offset on greenhouse gases, and use that argument. Guys, I think it's really good as a collective working together to get good management practice, you know, people making a change. I'm pleased you said it there at the start that you're always into collaboration with everybody else. I'm not into everyone having silos and thinking they own the intellectual, the IP and
that's the main reason we're here today, is to update you where we're at. Is there anything we can collaborate with? We're not trying to compete, or we're not looking for specific funds. We're here and available. If there's stuff we can do, and you know, doors always open.
you do because like there's this new, you know, what the water standards is for everything that carries water from a creek that might run once every 5 years to one that runs all the time. You know, that's going to be near impossible for farmers or anyone to actually rules. If they've got the same rule for a gully that might run some water in North Canterbury every 5 years, where it's Klaus the same as the Haranui River, the main stem of the river. You know, are we doing advocacy to ECAN and that to say some of these rules need looking hard at?
Yes, certainly we do. So we submit to, every time there's an opportunity that is going to impact on our members, we will submit to whatever the process it is really. But it goes back to Rob's question, is like there's so much to do in the water space. We just need to start understanding what's happening within our own boundary fences, because it looks like the rules are just unachievable. But we still need to do what we can do at home, paint a picture, be able to tell our story and have some evidence about what we're doing to maintain best practice at home. Even if the standards are impossible to achieve, we still need to do our bit.
But we've got to have people advocating, saying, because we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Yeah, so we're involved in sort of meeting with ECAN again next week, being BFM, workshops, trying to convince them to work on our behalf as well, and whatever opportunities we get to try to work on advocacy around it, just to make it realistic, make it something we can work pragmatically towards.
That's great. Is there any other questions from councillors? Look, on behalf of everybody here, thanks very much for your time this morning. I'm really impressed with the work that you're doing, you know, and the shift to understand, you know, some of the science behind the why, and from a collective impact, I guess, you know, and to have that information ready for when, you know, the need might be round the corner. I think that's really smart thinking. So, you know, well done for considering that, and I guess setting our farmers up to continue to be really successful farmers, you know, because that's, we know the value of that from a district perspective. So the work that you're doing is, you know, needs to be admired, and I just want to thank you both for coming along, but actually continuing to do that work in our communities as well. Feels to me as if there's some real opportunities around, you know, land and water that we need to continue that conversation from a district perspective as well. You know, it was great to hear, gosh, leveraging $12 million of funding, external funding into this district to bring benefit is, you know, not to be sneezed at either. So, you know, those sorts of factors are really important for us to hear. So, yeah, with that, thanks very much indeed. And we'll look forward, perhaps we need to do this a little more frequently than 3 yearly cycle. So, you know, we might, I might leave that with Graham to perhaps have an annual review when we can have these conversations, because it's good for all of us to understand the good work that's been going on. So thank you.
I appreciate that time very much, and if there's any projects, Amberley Wetland or anything like that, that you think we could collab with, then yeah, be really keen to get on board. It's not just farmers, it's any community project where we think we can add some value, so
Yeah,
be interested to catch up with you at some stage and see what's happening out there.
yeah.
Drive
Awesome.
past it every day.
Don't worry,
Thank
there's
you
some
very much.
I'm sure he's taken some notes.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great.
You might need-
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
How many was married?
Thank you. Thanks, Holly. Good job. Right.
We've got 6 people, including my husband.
Now, how many, we need 4 chairs, I think,
Only
in finance.
6. There's 6 of them.
6 of them, yeah. Oh, 6? Right. Might just shuffle you around, Tom, if that's okay.
Phil, move over. Excuse me, I will, I'll cuddle up there.
Oh, just gonna have a look.
Depends.
It's all right, I didn't know the other day. I haven't read the agenda. It's not read the agenda either.
Don't tempt me to get cheeky, I'm just gonna go. Before you know.
Read her out there, she dropped it off. Oh, okay.
Smart, everyone's on the money.
Jaguar.
See, we've got quite a few.
Yeah, good to see you. Hello, how you doing? Good to see you.
I'm Des. Tom. Nice to meet you.
Oh, I did. Hello. Right now, I've got
Sorry, hi, Tom.
Oh,
How's it going?
That's a bit close, isn't it?
Come and find a seat here.
Hey, Gary. How you doing, Paul? Haven't seen you for a bit.
You said you're busy with? Oh, yeah.
You're gonna
be at the top.
How you, Mr. Drew?
Oh, good on you, mate. It's the only elastic one I've got.
I was tempted when he was being cheeky to just give it a poke.
Right. Find the most comfortable seat.
I'm just trying to figure out if they're trying to intimidate us with numbers.
Yep, anywhere there will be fine, guys.
I'm just wondering if we're going to be out now.
Yeah.
There you go.
She didn't have to.
Oh, I've got an electronic.
Oh,
copy, so-
perfect, that's always good too. Oh, Tom, speak.
Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you with us as you represented us from the Fire and Emergency New Zealand. And I'm really conscious in you coming here today, the demand that has been placed on your time, particularly some of our volunteers. And because this year seems to have been a really a time when the community has called on your services and the demand has been intense. And I guess it just brings me back to the weather patterns that we're experiencing. You know, this district is in the incredible moisture deficit time, and we are seeing some land use changes as well, which kind of one thing triggers the other, which exposes our community, but it actually puts incredible demand on your service to protect our community, you know, both from a structural perspective, but actually from a human perspective as well. So I thought it was really timely that we invite you in to help us understand what you're seeing and what you're doing on our behalf, but actually a great opportunity for us to acknowledge the incredible work that you do and have done and will continue to do across our district. So I do want to start off with a show of thanks for the service that you provide to protect our community from here in the south and Amberley through up to, we've got Ross, he's coming in on Zoom, he's Mount Lyford volunteer fire brigade man, so and so we're very fortunate to have many people that actually do provide those services across our district. So we'll leave it over to you. I think we've got about half an hour. Graham, is that about right? Yep. So we'll work through your presentation. You've introduced yourselves to our team here, and this time for some Q&A, that'll be fantastic as well. So thanks very much.
Right, thank you, and thank you for the invite. It is a privilege to be here. I've brought a whole crew with me just in case we have to go somewhere.
Were we that scary?
Yeah.
Paul Harris, Chief Forester at Floodbrook.
Yeah. Brian Kewen, Assistant Commander based in Christchurch.
Bruce James, one of the risk advisors, Rangiora.
Kerry Prang, an advisor for community readiness.
Stu Spacey, Chief Officer.
And I'm Des Irving, I'm one of the assistant commanders that looks after the brigades north of the Waimak. It's to Waipara. So, I live in the town as well, so it's an interest for me. The key message, I think, for today is that we know we need to work as a team, but I think we can do better, and I'm deliberately being a bit provocative with that statement, because we do have a good relationship with the Huranui Council, as we do with the Waimak and Selwyn as well. But I think it's important that we strive to be better, and for every event that we have, these learnings, right? And for example, IMT stands for Incident Management Team. So when we have a long duration job here, we'll stand up an incident management team. And we're asking the council to be proactive and contact us, because sometimes we're so busy, it's not a priority to contact the council, and you offer local knowledge around contractors, whether it's iwi or landowners or whatever. So we just ask you to be proactive there. We're going to talk about recovery and our role in recovery, and a little bit about public education and how we can team together, and we'll explain what our hot fire days are. So whilst I've got a key message, the takeaway message I want today is help us help you protect what matters to you. So very soon we'll just look at our role in emergency management and the reliance on volunteers, and let me just explain that. So if we work from Invercargill to Nelson, so Invercargill, they have paid firefighters. The next paid firefighter town is Dunedin. The next one after that is Timaru. Next after that is Christchurch. And there's one paid station at Nelson. So the rest of the South Island is volunteer. We rely completely on volunteerism, right? And we'll give you some stats to how the last fire season went. Bruce is going to talk about the fire indices, and we use a science method to declare fire season, so we'll just explain that to you as well. Again, we'll just talk about recovery and public messaging. So, the Act. Our Act, the FENS Act, came into play when FENS was established 1st of July 2017. There are three main areas that we work through. Section 10 is about the principles of FENS applies, and that's around how we protect and prevent like injury and damage to the environment, that sort of stuff. Our main section is section 11, and that gives us the authority and the power to suppress fire, deal with hazardous substance, to do safe persons or property in endangerment from hazardous substance, rather, to rescue people who are trapped by motor vehicle accidents, and to provide urban search and rescue. Section 12 is around the add-ons. So those are the the functions we do when we've got the ability to do it. And our growth business is medical response, so that's under section 12, for example, and marine type of incidences and line rescue, that sort of stuff comes under section 12. So the reason why I've got these fellows here, they're all local, and you can probably guess where some of them are, but this is all volunteers who leave their businesses and their homes to go and support the community and protect the community. It's hot, dirty, tough work. And if you look at the top left-hand photo as I'm looking at it, you can see the blackened area that the fire has spread to a hedge row, gone past the hedge row, heading to the second hedge row, and then there's a dwelling after that. So that's a really good save. And our people will be in those jobs for days and sometimes weeks. This one is around volunteerism. So there are 365 days in the year. Last year, our volunteers responded for 253 days. Right. And those green spots on the left are the instances that they responded to. The one on the right, the blurred ready ones, those are the suspicious fires that we've identified through our investigation. So our role when we investigate a fire is to determine cause and origin, not blame. All right. So this is another stat. So if you look at the top left hand, it's the vegetation fires by season over the last 5 years. And, you know, we're on an increase all the way through. The graph on the top right, the curve, demonstrates over the last 5 years we're getting an increase in vegetation fires. The bottom left graphic is the number of fires we had during October and April last year. And if you look at the 75 bar graph, those are outside fires or burn-offs that are quite out of control. All right. The numbers on the bottom right, we had 518 fires between October and April last year, and 14 of those fires were greater than 10 hectares. The fires last year, we had 150 fires that escaped from a controlled burn-off. So that could be due to a wind change coming through, the fire not being put out, extinguished properly, and the winds come through and the embers have been thrown up and then dispersed. And if you look at the top right, since October to April, we had 245 fires escape, all were unattended. But we're big on education, and that number of 729 is the number of educational visits or advice given to the community. So if I look at just Huranui, that bottom number, so since January this year, and we've just had an update on the costs. So to extinguish the fire since the 2nd of January, just in the Huranui this year, is about 1.5 million at the moment, and we've still got more costs to come in. So if I break that down even further, the recent fire we had at the forest, just in Waipara, we spent $450,000 on helicopters. So it's a big cost.
Does that include the volunteers that have left their workplace and?
No.
So
that
would be
that's
an add-on.
it's an add-on to that.
To that 1.5.
So we don't capture also, because we use career crews to come up here as well. So we don't capture their cost.
Yeah.
Right, so that's just a known cost.
So does part of that money get paid back by the insurance? Because obviously.
No, sorry. So we're funded through the insurance levy. So we have no ability to claw back any costs that a jobber unless you can talk about that a wee bit, I guess.
The farmer, we have insurance, don't we? If we cause a fire, who gets that money?
So you have public liability insurance that most farmers will have, which covers the cost of your neighbour's property if you burn your neighbour's property. We don't have the ability to cost recover and things.
Yes.
So that got taken out of our act when we became fire and emergency. So NRFA, the old National Rural Fire Authority, had the ability to cost recover. We don't. So I think the only fire we can cost recover from is DOC.
That makes sense. So we've got no ability to cost recover. But under the old New Zealand Fire Service Act, up until 2017, we had the ability to recover costs.
So I'm still trying to work out if I'm paying a premium, and I have had a fire where I've just paid something.
Was it prior to 2017 though?
Yeah.
So the Forestry requires that
Good answer.
suppression. So that suppression insurance you would have had, and I had myself, is gone now, yeah. So, and there was good reason for that, because people are losing homes and farms from an accident. You know, so they're getting crippled for what was just an accident, you know, and so they took that away and so, yeah.
It's going to pass over to Bruce now.
Outlook for the season. Like all weather forecasts, as soon as I've spoken, I'll be wrong. So good news, 60% chance of La Nina, which is typically northeasterly, cooler and moister for Burunuru. This La Nina is a soft La Nina, so temperatures about the same, rainfall about the same, slightly less. So we are carrying drought, as you said, Murray, for Waihao Basin, Culverden, Hamner, Cheviot. We are carrying that still. We'll watch that space. Hopefully some rain now, October. There you go, just what I said. Less westerlies, Yahoo, that's good. That's good.
Just on that, you know, how you have your fire, they're quite big regions. I just look like where I'm from Cheviot. There's actually, like, in that zone, there's two classes of country. You know, you've got your hill country, which can be as dry as a chip and burn, and then you've got, you know, flatter land, which is
you're dead right.
But they're all on the same
page. Yeah, okay. I'll show you some of that.
You know, I just being a cropper farm, you know, come the autumn, you've got stubble paddocks, you've got green paddocks all around you, but you can't burn them.
Yeah, well,
you know, you get,
might have fixed that.
It gets quite frustrating.
What's this?
This is dinner and a show. You get the whole thing. Right, here's what Thursday. Right, so that won't bother you much. North Island is going to have an average year. South Island, the West Coast and Lower South Island, as per the graphic, will be slightly drier and more prone to fire. And that's very typical La Nina. If you picture the weather coming in from the right-hand side of the South Island, you know, we're getting the rain, the coast is not getting the rain, hence they're red. They have real challenging fires because of big forest fuels. They've got mines and coal seams and all that good stuff. So when they call us and go, help, we go, line's a bit funny, can't quite hear you. I'm on leave. So that's what they're saying, kind of gone for a sitting on the fence approach to the coming season. Right. Now, this is to help you out with how we do things. We've got 3 ways we look at the landscape. We've broken the landscape physically into hill and high country, plains, foothills, and coastal. And that's chopped up to suit our fire permitting. So those are the fire management zones for anything to do with fire. We then have climatic zones within that, and there's 23 climatic zones, of which the Cheviot area is one. And there's a weather station in each of those 23 climatic zones.
I've got, it's all my place.
There you go, there you go. And down at Annette Summers is we've just created a new climatic zone, permit zone, which runs from the Rakaia there in the south of the Canterbury district, or our Fens Canterbury district. It runs all the way up to the Ashley and back to the foothills to the left. And that's now called the arable zone. And that helps the poor old stubble farmers out who are, of course, trying to burn crop in completely irrigated fields, but because the weather says that it's dry and death and no fires, we've been restricting them and they get grumpy. So Hamner's also got Hamner Plains arable zone this year. Yay, so we can be smarter, yeah. So we look at the grass and how much it's cured. We look at the weather. We use those weather stations, like I say, 23. From those, a whole lot of maths is done by a supercomputer in Lincoln, and it produces the fire indices, which are simply indices of how a wildfire will behave today. It's measured hourly. We watch it every day in the summer. It guides a lot of our decision making. I'd like you all to remember this graph. There'll be a short test at the end. But look, it's just to show you that there is science behind what we do. So we take weather blue into how dry the fuel is. That's pine needles through to heavy logs, and we produce bottom yellow fire behaviour indices, an indication of how a fire will be today. From that, the guy talking to you now does a Monday morning brief on what the week will be like and what are watch outs, and we distribute that to the councils. KiwiRail, DOC, Forestry, the whole world gets it, and they can make decisions on how they're going to operate this year. A council might, Kerry will talk to this, but a council might release that out on their social media sites to help farmers plan their work for both work and for not doing things. From that, if it's going to be kind of crazy, public warnings, and we'll go standby for helicopters, standby for crews, standby for management, depending where the danger is, and move that around. And finally, we can carefully restrict activity. So we can use a Section 52 thing to restrict actions. But look, Forestry, Rail, DOC, they're all really good. They've got their own systems, like they'll stop logging at 11, they'll stop track riding at 10, or they'll do it in the evening, or they're carrying water, etc., etc. They're pretty damn good, actually. And to sum up, three approaches to the land mass. Who lives there? What do they do from an industry point of view? What's the topography? What's the fuel? What's the weather? Right, add the weather of the day to that landscape map, create permit zones, and create your fire seasons and your activity management. So it's a thinking game.
Does that sort of information feed into when restrictions are
exactly
coming on as well? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And we're chewing your guys' ears all the time, and especially farmers and the brigades, what's going on in the land, what's happening, because we're sitting in our office, we can't see it.
Yeah.
So that's part of these discussions, let's work better together.
Yeah.
And if I could just pick up where Bruce was before I got to recovery. The Hot Fire Day thing for us is one of those days you need to be watching. There aren't that many. There was an analysis done a few years ago that probably about 13 or 14 a year, but those are the days you want to be very conscious of what you're doing on the land, be it mowing, any spark type hazard or anything like that, because they're the ones we get. And as a result of that, as Bruce said, we put helicopters on standby and things like that, which we did actually on the morning of last Port Hills fire, because it was one of those days that had potential. So we're sort of amped up and ready to go. Excuse me. But in terms of recovery, we're not mandated to be the leader of recovery, but we do want to work closely with the parties that are civil defence, local authorities, etc. And key stakeholders, if we're working around the rail network and things like that. But also we have a duty of care that when we come off a fire ground and hand it back to the landowner, etc., that we want to make sure we leave as little mess as we can. There is infrastructure damage, example, fences damaged, waterways might be a bit compromised, etc. We will try and do what we can, but it's not in our mandate to do that. What we are mandated to do is operational recovery, and that's looking after our own resources and getting them back to readiness. Example was when I was in Napier for the Cyclone Gabriel. We had 51 compromised stations. No power, water up over the windows, etc. And some of those stations were over a year before they were recommissioned properly. But we try and get the community back to the sense of readiness as best we can, be that moving to alternative site, etc., so that brigade can function. And in a lot of the smaller communities, that was the central point for the locals to go to get some information, because our radio networks were working, etc. So the more remote you get, the more important those stations become. So we really focus on that, and our risk reduction team can offer, the community teams can offer advice and things to the community and how to support in that. And through that, we can also link in with other agencies to help pull everyone together. So that's probably us on recovery. One of the things I would say is when we get onto a job like we had at Waipara, having a liaison person from local council was really good. Alan Group was up there most days, which is a good two-way stretch of information. And I suggest to you, any job of significance, and back on what Des says, don't be scared to reach out, because when we're attacking in initial stages of a fire, we look at what we're doing. We don't have time to look at the nice to haves on the end. So while we might pull it, sometimes don't be scared to push us a wee bit too. Can you help, or can you send someone up from the block? Because that liaison's invaluable. On the land, some people would prefer us to let their house burn as long as we save their stock that's had 3 generations of breeding in there. So it's really important to keep what's valuable to the landowner or, excuse me, land manager.
Yeah, look, a real good example of that is in your district. Medbury, the Medbury Dock Kānuka Reserve. That's the oldest Kānuka stand on earth. And there's little epiphytes and little mosses and little ruby plants like that under there that are found nowhere else in the world. Once they're gone, the science of them is gone. To a lot of people, there's some really big Kānuka trees, that'd be great for firewood. So if you don't know, you don't know. That's what Ron's saying. We need you guys to, what matters here.
That's interesting. So this is my gig. We can do all of these amazing, wonderful things, putting out fires and doing all of that, but it means nothing if we're not communicating with our public. So it's really important, and FENZ has learned some fantastic lessons over the years, especially from the very first Port Hills fire, about how to be better at communicating with our public. So the Port Hills fire this year was a great example of our services and councils actually working together with a common goal to keep our public informed throughout the whole incident. For me, I am one of the PIMs in our fire team. It's really important for me to engage with our councils and engage with our other stakeholders to work out how they want us to deliver the message to their people, because everyone's a bit different. So it's really important that we all have that connection to serve the people. I just added a few parts in there about what we're working on at the moment. On the flip side of a lot of our wildfires comes people asking what they can do to prepare their properties in case of a wildfire. So at the moment, we're working on a video series around low flammability planting. It's not the silver bullet that's going to save everything, but it is a part of people preparing their properties that will help them if there is a wildfire. So we'll be releasing those at some stage, and we'll be working with the council teams to see if they want to push that out onto their platforms. We do have our national media team coming down to do some filming around the environmental impacts from the Port Hills fire. It's something that, again, we have learned many lessons over all of our different wildfires, and it's something that we're starting to realise that we go in, we put the fire out, well, yay, done. we're now starting to realise that there's an environmental impact to that, to what we do, and then also how we recover. So our national team will be putting that out onto all the different platforms once it's done. But most importantly, what I wanted to pass on from my perspective was that we've held a number of community meetings across Canterbury District, talking to the public about how to keep safe, how to prepare themselves, and how to be ready if there is a fire. We want to do that again. We find that's the best way to get in front of people and talk to them. But we don't know how to get out to the people, because if we host it, we don't seem to get a lot of take up, but we find that if community groups, if councils, community boards, if they say, hey, we're going to have FENZ come and talk to us, people seem to sort of migrate to those meetings. So I sort of put it out to everyone here today, how can we get in front of more people to help prepare them for the upcoming fire season?
And that's it. I just wanted to finish with the couple of statements at the beginning. But the takeaway message we want you to take is help you protect what matters to you. So we're happy for any other questions. I think we're inside our time, Graham, just to the minutes, I think. All right.
Well done. That's
Yeah.
perfect, Tommy.
So, thank you.
Kelly, can I just come back to you? So if you were looking for, community voices, I guess, to support your messaging around preparedness, do we contact you if we knew of a group that might like that to happen, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, and I will leave my business card, so that, yes, anyone who wishes to hold that. We are holding one in Scargill. There is one coming up in Scargill that I believe is being hosted by a member of the community up there. But the more we can do, the better off our people are.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
So just
Sorry.
Just to say,
And then Des.
just what a great job, you guys, and it's great here now. You have, I know that fire at the Met, I was down there, and how you got those choppers there. It could have gone for miles if they hadn't been there. It was, it's been a couple of times when you've been on the button and stopped a thing from becoming a really good mate.
just wanted to finish with this here. So at the Waipara fire recently, the school, one of the board members is a firefighter in Waipara, and the senior class asked if they could come down and see what we do. So we found time to give them a bit of a tour, not on the incident ground, but just around the management structure we had, and it was really great because they don't see us as a danger themselves. They're not scared. Now we explain what we do, and there was just the response from them. So I thought it was pretty cool. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
That's great, thank you. Paul and Cec, I just want to acknowledge you both as community members, both here in Amberley and Waipara. Paul, I think your brigades, along with the rest of the brigades across the Huronui, are such an important part of our community network. And whilst like Des and your team here today, the people that live in our communities that actually respond when the siren goes up and drop tools and leave their families. I know, when you have your honest nights that, have the opportunity to show gratitude, but, it does absolutely recognise the amazing work that you all do on behalf of our district. So I just want to acknowledge that again and thank you as community members, but actually the full team, because it is the team that makes us all safe, isn't it?
It is. Thanks very much.
But that's been a really valuable presentation, and I like you to take the message that we all need to take, help us help you to protect what matters to you. I think that's a really nice little message that we can all use and spread that word amongst our communities. But I really appreciated listening today. I think it's been really helpful.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Please say to Murray, just thank you for your acknowledgement. Yes, and our family's a big part of it, but also our employers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who leave jobs, and it's the whole Whārekau community. Tess and I are representing Amberley and Waipara, but there's a huge number of other brigades within North Canterbury, Bruno and Waimak, including one of your councillors I saw down the Waipara Station Hub at 6 one morning. You know, there's a lot of people involved. And, and also for the career guys with their backup. It's amazing. You know, as soon as we say something's going on, they're there. So it's a big machine and it works well.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic, and you know, it's can't acknowledge enough the work that's been done. Sorry, did you?
Oh, just where I see an upcoming issue is all this pine trees going in. And I just kicked back, I remember I've lost it, I had a book on the Balmoral fire, and there were recommendations that came out after that fire. People's memories are pretty short, aren't they? And I just look and there's wall-to-wall pine trees. They don't even put in water sources, really. They just plant them, there's no access. I don't know how some of these fires in 20, 30 years' time, in a gale, a big nor'wester gale, how you'd ever stop them.
There's a project, if I can jump in for a second, being worked on at the moment with forestry and stuff to actually put some rules around, particularly carbon forests, around access primary and water sources, etc. So that's in play. I don't think it's not enacted yet, but there is definitely work going on in the background. And some of the forestry companies are really nervous because right beside their commercial forest is someone who's sequestering carbon. And there's no pruning, there's no nothing. So there is definitely work in progress on that at national level.
But I'm looking at the ones that have already been planted. Up around Cheviot, there's one issue with I see Bull Bay getting burnt out. Just about solid pine trees from the state highway. There was a fire there a couple of years ago that just stopped on the boundary of places all the trees now. You just you're looking at a bit of disaster at times.
The status of volunteers on it, it's just a comment I've made because I'm in the West Ward in Medbury, so I know where you talk. And I'd heard the comment because of Deering's gone into their Mary, the negativity of that is that you're not getting the volunteers. So I thought, I employ 6 people. I thought, well, okay, ask amongst my crew as to who's actually interested. And two were. And then I found out that the training was every Tuesday night. And then it wasn't until 7 weeks, and they'd have to go for a 7-week training camp. And then it was this. To a point, I thought it was I don't think I can ask my guys for that amount of commitment, So we have gone down the track of rural fire. That may be a little easier. But I'm still waiting, and I've asked 3 times, I'm not asking 4. So I think to your communications side of it, maybe there's some diversity and migrant type thing, I'm not sure. So I'm just broaching it because I'm not asking 4 times, where I've said these guys are interested and they're not, they're intelligent, they're good people.
Yeah, talk to you offline, Dave.
Sorry?
Yeah, we'll talk to you offline.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that, So that's the first question. And then my proverbial was, I had thought of it helped to put rural and fire brigade together back in 2016, and she said it was pretty challenging in cultures. I do wonder in rural New Zealand, and maybe again it's above local, but it's higher up. At what point does St John's and Fens come together to do the double crewing in the rural areas? And we're limited resources. We're looking at double crewing people, and it's the same people doing it. Again, I've got a son-in-law that works as a paramedic, and so I hear different sides of it. So culture between St John's and Fens. So
I think there's no magic wand to give you an answer there, I'm afraid, but there are a number of brigades where people wear different shirts. A white shirt or blue shirt or another blue shirt as well, right? So that's small brigades. Arthur's Pass is a classic example of that. We do have St John's embedded in some of our stations around the place, both in the rural community and in the career community as well. But that's a decision above our pay grade.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just raising it is something like a place like Coleman, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense as well, maybe one form that you can actually have some paid people there. Versus, but anyway, I'm just raising it.
Hardin's a brigade that's probably got a good example of that, with Jackie just joining as a ambulance officer. I mean, her husband's in the brigade, but she comes in to cover on, I mean, I don't know the mechanics of it, but I'm just aware that that's happening, you know, so there's probably is some good examples of.
I suppose what I'm saying is we use Coleman as a neutral type of place. The infrastructure of one whole building, one fixed cost of one building with people coming out of it, maybe on the same times. You know, what percentage we're focused on fire? What percentage is it road accidents versus fire?
Depends where you are, but the growth business is medical. So Hammond Springs is a classic example. You've got police, ambulance and fire all on the same premise. Getting a joint workforce is above our pay grade.
You got a few more stars on
It just means I make better tea, that's what it means.
Anyway, hey, look, it's been great. Thanks very much for your time, and we'll look forward to doing it again. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, for this morning. I think we've had three very worthy presentations that, if nothing else, it creates bridging some of the gaps of our knowledge, but actually inspires us to do things different and to grow and to ensure that our community is a better place because of it. But with that, I think there is nothing further on our agenda today, so I will draw today's meeting to a close. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, Ross, for attending. And are you going to attend the workshop this afternoon?
Yes, can I zoom into that at 1 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am, if you just stay on the same Zoom, Ross.
Yep, I can figure that one out, thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll draw today's meeting to a close. Thank you.